Did you know that the Wahhabis murdered over 3,000 Yemeni pilgrims? In 1923, Ibn Saud's paramilitary gangs shot dead over 3,000 Yemeni pilgrims who were heading towards Mecca to perform the annual Hajj. When the Yemenis arrived in the southern provinces, one of Ibn Saud's gangs started shooting the pilgrims, killing 3,105 of them. This massacre is documented in the book The Great Massacre of Pilgrims by Professor Hamoud al-Ahnoumi. Professor Ahnoumi claims that this massacre took place for a number of reasons. Ahnoumi says that Ibn Saud did not want the Yemenis to interfere with his plans to conquer the Hijaz in alliance with Britain. Ahnoumi also says that this massacre was a British acceptance test for Ibn Saud, so that Ibn Saud could prove to the British that he was willing to do anything they asked. Britain was preparing Ibn Saud to be its first man and main agent in the region, who would implement its disruptive and differentiating project, but it wanted him to carry out an acceptance test that would qualify him to be its man who could carry out an ugly thing it asked of him. At the time of Ibn Saud, another Wahhabi massacre took place in Taif. As mentioned earlier, in 1803, there was an infamous massacre in Taif, which saw the Wahhabis kill 200 Sunnis. In 1924, they carried out another massacre, where they massacred 500 Sunnis. Then they robbed the remaining residents, leaving them no food. As a result, thousands starved to death. This is all described in the book The Hijaz by Malik Dahlan, published by Oxford University Press in 2018. The book collects the testimonies of multiple eyewitness accounts of the atrocities. British diplomats played down the situation in their initial reports, but as more refugees arrived from Taif and it became clear that a number of British subjects had been killed or robbed during the attack, the evidence of Wahhabi brutality became clear. Yasin Khan, the Indian pilgrimage officer, wrote, "After the occupation of the town, the Wahhabis behaved most brutally, killing the peaceful inhabitants treacherously and indiscriminately. About 500 to 800 men are said to have been killed. 7 men were taken out to ransom of £7,000. Dr. Muniruddin submitted another account of events as described by his patients who had fled Taif. On 2nd of September, they heard firing of bullets outside the walls of Taif. Ibn Saud's men entered the town in the afternoon of September 5th with the words, 'Heaven for you, slaughter these mushrikeen, these kuffar, these enemies of Allah.' They then made their way towards the tomb of Abdullah ibn Abbas, demolished the cupola, leveled the grave to the ground, and set fire there with the words, 'Demolish the cupola of the mushrikeen that they worship.' From that time onwards, the bullets were shot all over indiscriminately into the houses of the town until 8 a.m. on the Saturday. When they entered a house, they leveled their guns and pointed swords and knives towards the inmates and demanded that they surrender all gold and other coins. As soon as gold was collected, the adults were often shot dead. On Saturday, some people were made to carry the dead bodies towards the tomb of Abdullah ibn Abbas. The dead bodies were thrown there with the words that these kafirs need not to be buried but should be left there for the dogs to devour. Dead bodies were also tied with rope and dragged by mules. Some soldiers of the Hashemite government who were left in the town threw off their uniforms and joined the common people as Arabs so as to be saved from being slaughtered. The testimony of another eyewitness, Runsi Ihsanullah, a British subject, described how the inhabitants of Taif were taken outside the town into Shubra, with no personal belongings or clothing except what they were wearing, while the Wahhabis collected all the valuables found in their homes. In the next 3 days, no food was given to the captured, and when they were allowed to return to Taif, most decided to flee to other villages as nothing was left in their homes. During that exodus, many died on the way with no access to water. That event brought the estimated number of dead into the thousands. Another account states that the survivors were made to walk to Mecca barefoot in their underclothes with instructions to deliver a message that the Wahhabis were on their way, and those who supported Sharif Hussein would meet the fate of Taif. Otherwise, they would be spared. The atrocities reflect the extreme poverty of the Bedouin from the famished desert tribes, but also the political extremism inherent in the Wahhabi doctrine. In order to justify the killing of fellow Muslims, they first proclaimed them kuffar and mushrikeen. They also reportedly called the conventional Sunni administration of the Prophet Muhammad a form of idolatry.